Hey guys, Dave with AAA Coach here. Listen, we did a video about understanding different types of firearms last time. This video is about what to consider when purchasing a firearm. Stay tuned. So when we're talking about purchasing a firearm, we first need to talk about purpose. So what's the purpose of the firearm? It's going to be something more than just, it's my Second Amendment right, which is a great purpose. But you're not going to buy a hunting rifle, for example, for self-defense. And your self-defense pistol may not be your competition pistol. So what is the purpose of your firearm? So there's several different purposes we can talk about. Obviously, collector's items, because it's your Second Amendment right, self-defense, competition, hunting, military or tactical enthusiast, etc. So there's all kinds of purposes that you might want to consider. The one we're going to be focused on here is self-defense, and we'll dive into competition a little bit when it comes to, different types of firearms that you might want to consider for your competition. And what kind of competition are you actually going to get into? So now that we understand what the purpose is going to be, we're going to talk about varying different firearms. You saw them in my last video. I'm going to talk about them again because it's what I have. These are the firearms that I have. I don't have all the firearm styles available in the world, which that would be kind of cool to have, but I don't have all those firearm styles. But the styles that I'm going to talk about are in general going to be covered everywhere, right? So whenever I talk about, for example, this double action revolver, well, all double action revolvers are generally the same thing, right? It just depends on what caliber you get or something of that nature, right? But in general, it operates exactly the same as other double action revolvers. So after we've gotten into the purpose, for example, self-defense, now we can start talking about those things that we're going to look into. So the criteria that we're going to look at here, and this is pretty comprehensive, but it might not be the end-all be-all, but it is a very, very good comprehensive list. And in my opinion, of course, I made the list, so of course it's going to be good. Safety, comfort, ease of use, weight, and size. That's one category. Level of training and willingness to train regularly. Reliability, maintenance, and customization. Caliber and capacity. Color and appeal. Price and extras. When I'm saying extras, I mean extras you get with the price. And then equipment required. Let's start off with safety, comfort, ease of use, and weight and size. Obviously, if we're looking for self-defense stuff, your smaller guns like your double action revolvers, in this configuration anyway, there are bigger double action revolvers out there, but this kind of configuration for a double action revolver, this is super safe to carry, even if you don't have a level of training that some would say is sufficient. You could literally just load this thing up, throw it in your pocket, now you're good to go. Keep your finger out of the trigger and don't point the muzzle at anything you're not willing to kill it or destroy. So this firearm right here is perfect for those. We haven't talked about level of training right now, but It's perfect for those who don't really have a good willingness to train regularly. If they just want to have something for self-defense immediately, this would be one of those guns that I would recommend. Your striker-fired micro compact or subcompacts. These are going to be really good as well because of their size, their weight, and their ease of use. Okay, because you don't have an external safety, the ease of use is more prominent than, let's say, in 1911, as you heard in my last video. If there's an external safety, you have to go to the range regularly, or you at least have to dry fire regularly and practice taking the safety on and off, on and off. With these, it's literally kind of a point and pull the trigger thing. This one, the Glock 42 that's in my left hand here, this one may not be good when it comes to ease of use. If you remember my last video, I said, this has a snappy kick to it. Not really, that's not really a huge kick. It's just snappy. And because the spring is so stiff inside of here, you have to have a really, really, really good grip or it won't cycle correctly. And if you remember from my last video, I talked about the cycle, the function cycle. And if it can't cycle correctly, then obviously that would not be a good gun for you. The Canik SC, this is a subcompact, okay? It's a little bit thicker, it's a little bit longer, a little bit heavier, but the spring in here isn't as stiff as the spring in this firearm. Also, this one's a 380 and this one's a 9mm. Again, we haven't gotten the caliber yet. A lot of these things overlap with each other. Because this one's a 380, it has less powder in it, which means you're gonna have to have a good grip in order for that slide to cycle correctly. Whereas this one, it's a 9mm, a little bit more powder, which means even if it had the same kind of stiffness of a spring, it's going to have more power to push that slide to the rear so it can cycle correctly. Now, your firearms that have external safeties, these are going to require more training, obviously, like I had already mentioned, because you need to be able to take the safe on and off regularly. You need to be able to do that in the heat of the moment. And you need to be able to remember to put it on safe in the heat of the moment when you go to holster after a self-defense situation. Just picture this real quick. You've drawn your firearm. You had to draw it because you had an imminent threat in front of you. You fire your firearm, and then you stop the threat from being a threat. And now what's going to happen? The cops are going to come. 100%. They're coming whether you call them or whether you don't call them, right? So in the heat of the moment, when you're all amped up, you need to be able to remember to put this on safe, and possibly, I would recommend holster the firearm so you don't look like a threat to the police. So that requires a bunch of training over and over and over and over and over. Another thing is you have the trigger safety as well. So ultimately, as long as you keep your finger out of the trigger until you're ready to shoot, you'll be okay, even if you forget to put the damn thing on safe. The double action, single action versions of firearms, again, I wouldn't recommend them for anybody who's brand new to this thing. And I definitely wouldn't recommend them I probably wouldn't recommend them for self-defense unless, somebody knew exactly what was going on with their firearm. For example, the 92 series Beretta that has a decocker on it, and the way we used to carry them, 20 years ago when they were the service pistol, we used to carry them with the hammer down, decocked, and then on fire. A lot of people, if they see that, they'll say, well, it's on fire, that's not safe. It was like, well, actually it is safe because the hammer's forward, and that means it's a double action only. Anyway, so I would have to explain that to some people. And just because they see that it's on fire, quote unquote, they think it's unsafe. But double action, single action firearms, I'd say stay away from them, at least initially. But there are some good ones out there. I just wouldn't recommend them for anybody who is brand new to the shooting world. And of course, you got your trusty Glock 17s and 19s. These are probably the most popular pistol in the world, and they are easy to conceal. They are pretty much a good all-around gun, especially when we come into caliber and capacity. So 9mm, we're looking at, the most common round in the world, and then you get 15 rounds, and again, we haven't gotten into all that yet, but this is a good gun to conceal carry as well. Of the guns that I mentioned to conceal carry for the purpose of self-defense, my favorite is actually the Glock 42. That's my favorite to carry because it's comfortable, it's safe, its weight and size is good for me, and it's easy to use. Now again, I can shoot this thing well. My wife cannot. So her go-to is the Luger Security for a couple of different reasons, but the main reason is because the slide is so easy to rack. It's very comfortable for her to shoot at the range. It's very comfortable for her to carry. She just has to put it on safe whenever she goes to holster or put it in her bag or something of that nature. That's something she has to remember for herself. But this is her go-to. My second concealed carry is, you guessed it, the double action revolver. Again, we haven't gotten to caliber capacity. You only get 5 rounds with this, but we'll get there later. That's my second concealed carry option that I like. Of course, all these are fine. Any of the guns that I mentioned are worthwhile looking into. It's just, again, ease of use. You want to go buy a gun today for self-defense without any training whatsoever, without minimal training. I mean, obviously you need to know how to load it and how to unload it and keep your finger off the trigger, for example. But that would be this one. That's the one I would recommend for brand new shooters that have no training and they want it immediately. They want it right now. Which brings me into level of training and willingness to train more or regularly. So by regularly, I mean maybe once a quarter, so 4 times a year. That's pretty regular. If you did that, you would be training. And when I say training, I don't mean shooting. I mean you're going to the range and you're training. There's a difference between training and shooting. If you go to the range to shoot, to have fun, great, but it's not necessarily training. Now, if you go to the range to train, which means you have a purpose, you have a specific purpose you're going to the range for, whether it's accuracy or speed or whatever. You're training on one or a couple of different things, but you're really trying to hone down on whatever that is. For example, drawing your firearm in a safe manner. If you're willing to regularly train, let's say once a quarter, again, 4 times a year, if you did that, you'd be far above most people that go to the range. Most people that go to the range go there to shoot. That's all they do. In fact, a lot of my traffic on Google or whatever, it's people looking for the range. Most people actually need professional instruction. And I might hurt some feelings here, but most people watching this video need professional instruction. They absolutely need it. Exercise your Second Amendment, but at the end of the day, you're likely not as good as you think you are. If your level of training is high, for example, and not necessarily police and not necessarily military either, because some of them folks can't hit the broadside of a barnyard. If your level of training is high, and you understand firearms in general, any of these guns will be fine for you. If your level of training is not so high, well, the ease of use firearms, for example, the double action revolver, the Glock series of firearms, the Canic series of firearms, those are going to be easier for you to understand and for you to master. If your willingness to train is high, like you want to go to the range and you want to absolutely learn the firearm, then, I would start off with something very easy to use and then bump up from there. If it's your first firearm, you probably have almost zero training, which means the ease of use of that firearm is going to be important. Reliability, maintenance, and customization. Okay, so reliability, this guy right here, it's the most reliable firearm that I have in my arsenal. And I imagine if anybody has a double action revolver, it's probably the most reliable firearm they have in their arsenal as well. There's hardly anything that would stop this from working except for maybe a dud round, if it goes click. But then if it did go click, all you have to do is pull the trigger again, and you're going to have another live round. It's pretty damn reliable, okay? When it comes to maintenance, you open up the cylinder, you clean the chambers, you clean the barrel, you wipe it off, oil it up a little bit, it's good to go, okay? Super easy to maintain. You can't really customize it very much. The sights are fixed, obviously. Maybe there are some out there you can customize a little bit, but at the end of the day, trying to get something customized for concealed carry is probably not what you should be looking for anyway, because if you have to use it in self-defense, that firearm will then become evidence. Self-defense is an affirmative defense to murder, but you have to be able to prove that you actually acted in self-defense. So they're going to take that firearm and it's going to become evidence. The Glock series of firearms, super easy to maintain as well. As long as you can pull the slide back and clear it, to take it apart takes like a second. And then you can get in there and clean all that stuff up, and you can obviously clean all the stuff up in the slide and get it oiled up. Now, same thing with any Glock, right? All the Glocks work the same. Super, super easy. Super easy to take apart, super easy to put back together. All Glocks are the same. Customization, since the Glock is the most popular firearm, there's a lot of stuff out there you can do with a Glock. If you're looking to customize your firearm, maybe a Glock is going to be something you would look into. When it comes to reliability for the Glock, hands down. I can't remember any time that I carried the Glock 19 while I was in Special Forces. I can't remember any time that I had to change out any of the parts. And we shot a lot of bullets, a lot. 400 rounds at the range in my pistol every time we went out is not unheard of. 350 to 400 rounds, not unheard of at all. And we would go to the range 2 to 3 times a week. And so that's a lot of bullets going down range in a Glock. So in comparison, the 92 series Beretta, you get to about 8,000 rounds and the locking block would break inside of it. You don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but there's a locking block inside of the Beretta and it would break and we would have to replace that locking block. I've never had to replace a part in a Glock. I just haven't had to do it. So there's that. The reliability is super awesome. Your Canic series of firearms. Okay, again, this is strike fired, no external safety, so on and so forth. But you have to, even though it breaks down similar to a Glock, the back piece here, okay, if you just try to slide this on here, it's going to hit what's called the ejector. So instead of just sliding it straight on, you have to know to put it back here and then slide it. Not as really a big deal, but you just kind of have to know that a little bit. Your fixed barreled firearms. Before we get into that, let me just show you this real quick. So here's your barrel out of the Glock. Most of these that you're looking at, the barrel comes out of the slide, okay? There are some firearms where the barrel is actually fixed. There's not a lot of them. I think of Makarov and this Walther P22. I don't know about any other firearm that might have that same kind of fixed barrel thing going on. It's a little harder to get done, but it can be done. You can see the barrel is still attached. So those kinds of firearms are a little harder to take apart, but it can be done. And then obviously I have to line everything up here. It's kind of a pain in the dick. There we go. Okay, so there's a Walther P22, and firearms like it that have a fixed barrel, it might be a little more difficult to take off than, let's say, a Glock or Canic or something of that nature. And then some firearms, like this Luger Security, you'll have to pull it back just a hair and then pull out the takedown pin, and then it'll come apart. So, I mean, that was pretty easy as well, but now you have extra pieces that you have to keep track of. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Now your 1911s, a little difficult to take apart, but once you do it once or twice, it's not that hard. But it's definitely harder than, let's say, the Glock or Canic series firearms or anything like that. So when it comes to maintenance, taking this apart is going to be a little more difficult. So again, it goes back to level of training. That training might be actually taking the damn thing apart, putting it together, understanding where to put oil, so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to customization, your 1911 is super customizable. You can customize this, and you can get a good trigger for it. You can get different hammers for it. You can get all kinds of stuff for your 1911s. So if you're looking for customization, 1911s and Glocks are probably the way to go. Okay, so caliber and capacity. Now we're going to start talking about some competition a little bit. So the firearms that I had in front of me, you can compete with these, not a big deal. Most people would like to compete with bigger firearms such as the 1911 or the Canic Rival or the Canic TP9 SFX or CZ Shadow or these other large frame firearms. But any of the firearms that I had in front of me, you can actually compete with them. For example, the double action revolver, you can compete as a bug out gun, or they call it bug in IDPA. You can compete with your regular Glock 42, your Glock 19, it doesn't matter. There's going to be different categories. For example, this is a standard stock pistol. This is a bug out gun. And if you put a red dot on it, now it's carry optics is what it's called. So it just depends on what division you're trying to go into. And I do highly suggest to get into competitions. I highly suggest it. Why? Not because you're trying to compete and be better than anybody else. It doesn't matter. Don't let the word competition get away from you. It is a great venue to actually have a place to draw, move, shoot, change magazines, do all the things that you need to do, possibly in a self-defense situation. I would start off with IDPA, which is basically your concealed carry kind of competition, concealed carry style competition, and then possibly move up into USPSA or something of that nature, which is open carry, bunch of magazines, you're shooting a lot, it's super fun. But anyway, so let's get back into caliber and capacity. In front of me, I have the Glock 19 mag, the Canic SC mag without the extension, the Glock 42 mag with the extension, the Canic Rival / TP9 series with the extension, Walther P22, the Canik SC with the extension, these two here, the 30 Super Carry Smith & Wesson Shield Plus, and then your 1911. So when we're talking about caliber, your 22, this little guy right here, it is a viable self-defense cartridge. The problem is it doesn't have a whole lot of knockdown power. In fact, it doesn't really have any knockdown power. You're going to have to go to the range and train with it so you know that you can hit somebody right here in the tee box while they're potentially moving at you. I mean, if you hit them, in the shoulder or in the muscle or something like that, it's going to really hurt them. But it's not likely going to, it can have the potential of not stopping them. Most times than not, just the mere production of a firearm will stop somebody from being a threat, because there's this thing called self-preservation. So it is a viable cartridge to self-defense, but it's not highly recommended among the 2A community, and for good reason. The only reason why I would recommend a 22 to anyone for self-defense is maybe they have weak bones. Maybe that's the only cartridge that they can shoot, and shoot well, to defend themselves. That would be my contention with it. The other reason why I wouldn't really recommend a 22 is there's not many 22s out there that I know of that are reliable when we talk about the firearm. So the Walther P22, not super reliable. You're going to have a bunch of malfunctions in that. You're going to have to know how to clear the malfunction. Level of training, again, ease of use kind of a thing. And for the small caliber that is, you're only going to get about 10 rounds out of this magazine. And you can see it's just as big as these other ones, okay? Now, the 380, which is here, this guy, okay? The 380 is, I would say, the first cartridge for self-defense that is super viable for just about anybody. I mean, you got 32 auto and stuff like that that's underneath it, but the 380 actually, I think, is the next viable cartridge that anyone could possibly use and actually stop a threat if they had to shoot. 380 actually is not as common as the 9mm, so the boxes of ammunition could be a little bit more expensive than, let's say, 9mm. So it really just depends on whether you can handle a 9mm or not. If you can handle a 9mm and you can find a firearm that works for you, I would recommend a 9mm all day long. So of these firearms, these two are the 380 models. Remember, I said that this one has a very, very stiff spring. So you're going to have to go to the range. You're going to have to really have a good grip on it. And you're going to have to really be able to shoot it. And in the event you do get a stovepipe or something like that, you need to learn how to clear it out. I haven't had any stovepipes or malfunctions out of this. Neither has my wife. This one, the Luger Security, is cheap too, right? We haven't even gotten the price and extras yet, but it's pretty cheap. And just about anybody can move the slide back and shoot it well. I guarantee you. So that's the other 380. All right, the next step up, the 9mm. The 9mm is going to be the most common. So I got the Glock 19 is 9mm. The Canik SC is 9mm. My Canik rival, my Canik TP9 SFX, they're all 9mm, okay? Now, it really just depends on how big do you want to go exactly. So this isn't a 9mm, but its sister, the 43 or the 48, have similar magazine capacity. Okay, so that one would be this. Okay, this is a 380 mag. Okay, and it would hold 6 without the magazine extension. Also, without the magazine extension, my pinky would fall off the bottom of it. So I wanted the magazine extension for 2 reasons. One, so I can get 2 more rounds, and then 2, so I can actually use my pinky where it's supposed to go. Same thing with your 43. Your 43 only gets, I think, 6 rounds. Now your 48's a little bit bigger. You're going to be able to have maybe, I think it's 8 rounds or 10 rounds in the 43, or excuse me, 48 in the 48, which is fine. But again, you're going to have a bigger firearm than, let's say, the 42, because the round is actually bigger. Okay, so now we've talked about the 9mm and that round capacity there. So here's a 20 round mag, here's a 15 round mag, and here's a 15 round mag. That's with the extension, of course. With the extension, the Canik SC Elite is just as big as the Glock 19 mag. Just as big as the Glock 19 mag. And the Canik is a little thicker in the back than, let's say, the Glock 19. So, in all honesty, you're not really gaining much from the Canik versus the Glock on this. The only thing you're really gaining from the gun itself is the trigger. The trigger is way better in the Caniks than they are in the Glocks. Okay? So you're not gaining, you're not losing capacity, you're not gaining or losing size or weight, but you're getting a better trigger out of the Caniks than you are the Glocks. This one, obviously, that'd be for like duty use, like security, police work, military, USPSA, or home defense. I love having a firearm with a lot of rounds for home defense. You never know who or what is going to try to break into your home, and it could be multiple people. You might need more rounds because it could be a coordinated attack, for example. Now your 30 Super Carry, which is this magazine here, you're going to get 13 rounds out of this, and if the magazine's inserted from the Glock to the 30 Super Carry Smith & Wesson Shield Plus, you know, the size is comparable. The Smith & Wesson is shorter in barrel length, and it's also shorter here, just a little bit, just a smidge. Now you're getting 13 rounds out of this, so you're losing 2 rounds, but you're getting a shorter package than your Glock 19. You're also getting in my opinion, a better, slimmer profile, especially here in the pistol grip. But since we're talking about caliber and capacity, the 30 Super Carry is the caliber, and you're getting 13 rounds in a short little package. The one with the magazine extension actually is 15 rounds. So or actually, I think it's 16 rounds. So you get 1 more if you do the bigger one than let's say the standard Glock 19, and 2 less than the standard Glock 19 if you use the smaller one. But the 30 Super Carry is this one, which was made to really compete with the 9mm. It's a little bit longer, and it's in the case, and 30 being .30 it's a little bit skinnier than the 9mm, and it has just as much, if not more, kinetic energy than the 9mm. Having a firearm that's 30 Super Carry or something of that nature, that's not a common round to think about, as if, you know, somebody pulls a gun on you, they fire, and then you pull a gun on you pull the gun to defend yourself, and you fire. Now there's two different cases which are easily identifiable of who shot what, when, and how, which could help you possibly in a self-defense trial. We talked about the 22, the 380, the 9mm, the 30 Super Carry. Now we're talking about the 38 Special. Remember, that goes in this one, okay? You're only getting 5 rounds out of this one. There could be some others out there that have 6 or 7 rounds or something of that nature, but this one you're getting 5 rounds. You're getting a cartridge that will absolutely stop a threat. So this is the standard 9mm. This is the difference in length. So the projectile is the same thickness as the 38 and 9mm, but you're getting more power out of it because it has a longer case. So there's more volume in here to put more powder. Because of the power factor on this and the lightweight of the gun, it's going to give you a little punch. But as I said before, merely just producing a firearm is going to generally stop someone from being a threat. You might not even have to shoot it. And even if you do have to shoot it, your adrenaline is going to be pumping so much, it's not going to matter. You're not even going to feel the recoil. And for the last cartridge that we're going to talk about, the 45 ACP. So the 45 ACP goes to the 1911. Now you can get 1911 style controls on, let's say, a 2011 or something of that nature. A Kimber Micro 9, guns like that, they have the same kind of controls as the 1911, but they have a 9mm capability. So the 45, the famous saying is, well, if you have a 45, you only shoot once. Like I said before, most people need professional training. Some people think that 45 is like shoot once, that's all you got. Well, that's not necessarily true. You might need more than one. What if you just suck at shooting? You're going to need more than one. And if you suck at shooting, the 45 is not going to be the answer anyway, because it's going to have a lot more recoil than any of those other cartridges that I've mentioned. You only get 8 rounds out of this. So you get 8 rounds out of this, and you get 8 rounds out of this. You can see the difference there, right? So trying to concealed carry a 1911, for example, probably not advisable. That's the caliber and capacity that we're going to talk about, and I hope that helps you kind of determine what is going to be good for you in the future. Okay, this one's going to be short, color and appeal. So most of your firearms are going to look like that, especially your semi-automatic firearms. Most of them are going to look like this, black. That's it. That's what you get. But you will have firearms, obviously, the silver one, okay? You can get this one in, I think you can get it in pink and purple and all kinds of weird colors. And initially, I thought, having a colored firearm is kind of dumb. Maybe it's not. So, picture this real quick. You have a firearm and you're concealed carrying. For whatever reason, your shirt comes up, somebody sees a firearm, let's say they're anti-gun, and they go, okay, well, I'm anti-gun, so I don't want that dude having a gun, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell the cops that that person pointed a gun at me or showed me the gun, brandished or whatever. So the cop comes to investigate, he's asking questions, he or she is asking questions, and they ask the question of what color was the gun. What are they going to say? They're going to say it was black. And if you have a black firearm, even though you didn't do anything wrong, they're going to have to believe that person because they got the information correct. However, what if it was silver or gold or purple or teal or whatever? Whatever the case may be, if that person says the firearm was black and then it turns out that you don't have a black firearm on your hip, then they're going to be caught lying to the police, and then they're going to go to jail. So it's a very minute thing to think about, but I mean, it could happen. I mean, there's some people out there that are super anti-gun, and they'll do anything in their power to to disarm everyone in their sphere of influence, let's say. So that's something to really think about. So color and appeal. If you just merely produce a firearm, statistically speaking, that's going to stop the threat. Because everyone, no matter how bad they are, has some kind of self-preservation about them. That's not to include drugs and stuff like that. Obviously, somebody can be on drugs, and that might hinder them from the self-preservation aspect. But in general, that's going to stop the threat. So just producing the firearm without even firing around may actually be a self-defense technique. All right, here's my favorite: price and extras. For the price of a Glock, you get the gun, and you get 2 magazines. Okay. For the price of a Canic, for that same price, you get the gun, 2 magazines, and it does come in a case you could lock. I wouldn't recommend it. There's other cases out there that I would recommend, but you could lock it, and you get a right-handed holster. So if you're looking at extras, getting a holster with the gun is A-okay in my book. I love that, because then you don't have to go out and search for a holster, especially if you're new to the firearms realm and you're like, well, what holster should I get? Or what should, all this other stuff. We haven't gotten any equipment, but you definitely need a holster if you're going to conceal carry any of these firearms on your hip, for example. Those holsters should cover the trigger guard, this portion here, and the trigger, because that's the part that's the boom switch. And you don't want the boom switch to be pushed unless you're intentionally pushing it. So having a holster that comes with the firearm already is already a step up from any of these other firearms. Now the Luger Security doesn't even come with a case. It comes in a box. But it comes with 3 magazines, 3 10-round magazines, which, did we cover that one? No, we didn't cover that one. Hold on. Let's back up a little bit. This is the Luger Security magazine. You can see it's just about as tall as the Glock 42 magazine. It's a little bit shorter than the Canic SC magazine, but you get 10 rounds of 380. So, as I was saying before, back on track, the Luger Security actually comes with 3 magazines, which is cool, right? But it's a cheap gun. I think I got it for $300. $300, 3 magazines, but you're going to have to buy a holster, and you're going to have to buy a case if you're going to travel with it, right? So those kinds of extras is what I'm talking about. I don't know what comes in all the different firearms cases and packages and such. Every Canic that I've bought has come with a minimum of 2 magazines and a right-handed holster. None of the other firearms came with a holster, but the Canic did. And for a brand new shooter, if you're looking for something that you want to purchase and then go to the range to train and shoot and learn about without really thinking about it, any of the Canic series is going to be good for you because it's already got a holster. Now, if you're left-handed, I think you're SOL, man. You're going to have to buy a holster anyway. So that brings me into the equipment required. So for self-defense, the equipment required is obviously going to be the firearm, the ammunition, a holster, most likely, a robust belt, not one of these Kmart, Walmart, flimsy things. You're going to need a good belt, or maybe a bag. You're going to need if you're a lady and you're carrying a purse and you want to put it in your purse, let's say you want to put this in your purse, you need to have a pocket that is solely dedicated just for the firearm, period. Don't have anything else in there, just that. So I know there's some fanny pack type things or shoulder carry type things, bags that you can use to carry a firearm. Those are great, but you have to train with them. So it goes back to your willingness to train. And what I mean by training with it, I mean putting it on your body, putting the gun in there, zipping it up, pulling it out and pointing at the target and shooting the target. You know what I mean? You have to train with it in order to be proficient. So some of the equipment, obviously you're gonna need magazines. The magazines generally come with the firearm, okay? Unless it's, you know, of course, a revolver, there's no magazine there. You're gonna need a robust belt. This one is a core leather belt. So this holds up to 6 pounds, and it's got a ratchet system here. So I can easily take it on and off. There's no, you know, fiddling with the holes or whatever, or anything of that nature. Super awesome belt. So you're gonna need a robust belt. You're gonna need a holster. So you can get one made, like I got this one. It's for my Smith & Wesson. I got it made because I like the Colorado logo, the flag there. And I had it canted slightly, okay? The only thing I don't like about it is that it's not easy to get on and off, right? So once I have it on my belt, it stays on my belt, that's it. You should hear that snapping in whatever holster that you have, especially for concealed carry. So this is a level 1 holster. That means that it's just held in there by friction, and it covers the trigger guard and trigger. This one was fairly cheap. This is inside the waistband. It has a clip on it. What you need to look out for, though, is you need to look out for these screws to back out. So you might have to tighten those every now and again. These are pretty good right now. We the People holster, sell them. I think I got this one cheaper. It's the same stuff. It's Kydex. So don't go and spend a whole bunch of money on a holster, because you can find one for really cheap and it does the same job. And you can hear the snap there, and that's what you want to hear. This is an outside the waistband holster. I generally just use this for my range stuff. There's not going to be a snap here. I could tighten it up a little bit. You should be able to hold it upside down, and it shouldn't come out when shaking it. So I need to tighten this one up if I'm going to carry it. Okay. I would definitely carry this concealed. So if I have like a big jacket or something of that nature, I could conceal this pretty well. But I wouldn't carry it open, because it'd be so easy for somebody to take it out. And if I get in a scuffle or something like that, it could fall out. And this is the holster that comes with the Canik SC. It is a outside the waistband holster. Technically, you could probably switch these little clips around and do it inside the waistband. And what I mean by that is that, you know, it's either inside the belt or it's outside the belt kind of thing. And this comes with the Canik already, and you can hear the snap there. So that's pretty damn cool. Here's another holster. Now I really like this holster, even though you're not going to hear a snap or anything like that. I can use this holster for a lot of firearms. So if you want to carry different firearms for whatever reason, I can use it for my Glock 42. I can use it for my Smith & Wesson 38 Special. I can use it for the Luger Security. I can use it for the Walther P22 if I decide to carry it. I could probably even use it for, I can even use it for my Canik. So this one's going to be a little more flexible, if that makes sense. Not only in the sense of flexibility on the material, but it's also flexible in how many firearms I want to carry. I can't do that with the other holsters. So if you have a lot of firearms and you only want to buy one holster, consider a leather holster that is going to accommodate several different firearms. Okay, so I got a holster from T1G, and you know, I like it, I guess. This little portion right here is a little bit too long for me. I don't like it in that sense, because when I sit down, it digs into me. And so it's a good holster, but I think there's better ones out there that do the exact same thing for a cheaper price. Here's another outside the waistband holster for the Glock 42. You can see how small that is, and the paddle in the back, it actually goes in your belt or inside the waistband, and then it hooks in there. So when you go to pull it, you can pull it straight out. So you're going to need a holster. You're going to need the firearm, the holster, the magazine, obviously the ammo. The next thing you're going to need is possibly is a magazine holder. You're probably not going to wear one of these when you're concealed carrying. This is more for like, any kind of professional work. It's also something you can use for IDPA or USPSA or something of that nature. I like this because it clips onto your belt versus putting it on your belt and then having a hook or something grab your belt. This actually clicks on your belt, which is really cool. This one in particular is a double stack magazine holder. So what I mean by double stack is that these magazines are generally thicker than your single stacks. Your single stacks are going to be, you're going to have cartridges one on top of another. This one's going to be staggered. Okay, so this one is for that. You can loosen it up. You can tighten it up. It's really cool to have for any kind of competition or something of that nature, as I said. Okay, so now let's talk about competition, right? So most of it's self-defense, what we're talking about, but if you want to get in competition, especially USPSA, you're going to need a holster that is likely going to drop down. So it's called a drop holster. This holster right here is from CompTac. It's a good holster for my Canik SC. This one doesn't have a whole lot of friction. I need to tighten it up, but it's also for USPSA use or whatever. You can tighten it up here with the screws, no big deal. But this is what it would be like, and it would actually drop down from your waist, which is good. You're gonna need some magazine holders that you can put on your belt, and obviously your magazines. You're gonna need a bunch more magazines. You're probably gonna need at least two more magazines for the gun that you're gonna use for competition at a minimum. And it's going to be good for you to have a double belt system. So this inner belt here would go on your waist. Then you would take this outer belt and put it on the inner belt. It would wrap around your waist. And then now that's really sturdy and stable for competition use. This is the holster that came with my Canik TP9 SFX. It's not drop compatible, but it still works for any kind of competition purposes. This is my core belt. This is the one I usually run. Your magazine holders, they need to be kind of adjustable so you can put them wherever you want to. You might need a drop bag, so you can put empty magazines or gloves or whatever in there, and then maybe even a med kit. Now this core belt is a lot better than the other belt I was talking about. It is a dual belt system. So you have your inner belt with Velcro, but then you also have this ratchet system. So it really snugs to your waist. Canik rifle already comes with a drop holster. You just have to adjust it for your liking, and now you're ready to go. What about lights? You could get a light for your gun. You need to have some kind of a rail system. This one does not have a rail system on it, so I wouldn't be able to do it here unless I get an accessory. If you want a light on your firearm, maybe that's going to be something you need to think about before you buy the firearm. Because, yeah, that Smith & Wesson, it doesn't have a rail system on it. I might have to get an accessory just so I can put a rail system on there. So if the gun already comes with a rail system, then that's something you probably need to think about before you buy it. Obviously, if you don't have a light or don't want a light on your firearm, then you can just hold the light and then shoot. But you need to have a light source that has a high brightness to it. You don't know how far you're going to have to shoot. I did a competition, and I just used like a little pin light to do this competition. And it didn't work. It didn't work out very well for me. Let me just put it that way. So you definitely need a bright light if you're going to use a light on your firearm. You also need to consider the holster aspect of it, because if I put this light on this firearm, it's not going to fit in this holster. I need a special holster just so I can put the light on. And then for this one, obviously you need a holster for it if you're going to put it into your waist. But obviously, if you just want to put it in your pocket, you don't really need any equipment with that. So it just depends on what you want to do with it. Okay, the next cases. The cases that come with your firearm are likely not going to be suitable for travel. They might do the job, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to be able to put a robust lock on there. I would suggest for travel, like a Hornady Security, where the back of it can't be opened. And if you lock it up front here, then you can't pry it open. So that's what I would suggest for travel. I wouldn't suggest that for home defense. What I would suggest for home defense is something with a keypad or biometrics. Any of your firearm cases inside of your home, you should have the same code for. The reason why I say that is that if it's the same code, then you can go from wherever one case is to the other. You don't have to remember different codes, and they should be the same style. So if it's biometrics, then it should be the same biometrics. If it's code, then it should be the same code, and the keypad should also be the same. So for example, I got 2 Hornady security lock boxes, and both of them have the same code, and both of them look exactly the same. Bags and backpacks. This is a core backpack. I think there's some others out there like this, but this one has a zipper on the side, so you can zip it up and down on either side, okay? And it has a magnetic inside of there, so that way when you put a firearm, it stays put. I can take this firearm and place it in there. You can see it already stays there. I'll keep this open. It's not coming out. So having a bag that has magnets in it where the firearm is supposed to go is a good thing to have. If you don't have a bag that has magnets in it or has a designated spot for a firearm, you need to designate a spot for yourself. So if you have a bag that you carry every day, let's say it's a purse or some other kind of bag, cross, carry, maybe it's a waistband bag, whatever. The pocket that you use to carry your firearm, that's the only place your firearm goes, and nothing else goes in there with it. Obviously, the bag needs to be robust enough to carry whatever firearm that you have. So again, a smaller package is going to be better for concealed carry. If you're trying to carry a 1911, that's probably not going to be good for you. Unless, let's say you're using the bag that I just displayed, you could carry a 1911 in that. Full-size firearm, no big deal. Okay, I think that does it for this video of the series, choosing your first handgun. I hope this video helps you out in deciding what firearm type you're going to get. So whether it's a double action revolver or a striker fired semi-auto without an external safety, or maybe with an external safety, or maybe it's a hammer fired single action, or maybe it's a double action single action, like whatever the case may be. I hope it helps you decide which firearm that you're going to go and look for and purchase. I think you should probably find a reputable trainer. For example, I will take my firearms out. If somebody schedules with me, if they don't know what they want, I'll take them out and I'll say, okay, well, try this one, try this one, try this one. Which one's comfortable for you, right? And then I will recommend a firearm that they should go purchase for their own, right? Because I can sit here and talk about it all day long on it should be comfortable, it should be safe, you should go train with it, you should understand your firearm in and out, etc., etc., etc. But until you go and actually shoot these damn things, you're not going to know which firearm is going to be right for you. So I would suggest to find a professional, have them give you recommendations, and they should, I'm going to say should, they should take you out to the range, watch you shoot, and then make them a recommendation after that. Because maybe you can't pull the slide back, or maybe, for example, the Glock 42, maybe you keep getting stovepipes, or whatever the case may be. That's my recommendation before you even buy a firearm. I don't suggest going up to the counter at any big box stores or anything like that, because no doubt those people behind the counter, they're just trying to make a sale. They don't care if you can shoot it. They don't even care if you know what it is. They just want to sell you the firearm. And they want to sell you the ammunition with the firearm. And they want to say, okay, well, you need this holster and all this other stuff. They're just trying to make a sale. They don't give a damn about your comfort or your safety in regards to that firearm. Because once they sell it to you and now it's yours, it is your responsibility. I'm going to get off my soapbox, and I'm going to see you on the next one, which is getting started with handguns. Tack out.